Hey friends, how's it going? Hope you're all keeping safe and well. This is the 7th episode of IELTS video podcast. Hope you've enjoyed the previous episode. And let's welcome my dear friend Mehdi.
Hello, my friend, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's quickly jump straight to the question. Mehdi, could you please read the question for us?
Yes, of course. In the many, and we have to mention that this one comes from Cambridge 18 Test 3. Cambridge 18 Academic Test 3. It says, in many countries around the world, rural people are moving to cities. So the population in the countryside is decreasing. Do you think this is a positive or negative development? What is really interesting, and I think for the viewers and for everyone else, it's interesting to know, is the fact that when we write this, for example, you did this earlier than I did, and we have a completely different approach to brainstorming. And your approach is really interesting, and I want you to elaborate on that a little bit. What is the detailed process of brainstorming when it comes to topics like this?
I really prioritize planning at the beginning of my writing, and I prefer to have a detailed and complete planning. So let's have a look at my planning. First of all, after brainstorming, I try to have my position. So as you can see, my position is, I want to say it's completely negative. And as I'm going to write two main paragraphs, I try to have my central ideas. So in the first central idea is that it's negative for rural residents, and the second central idea is that it can be negative for the society. For each main paragraph, as you can see, I try to think about the function and the job of each sentence one by one, and it will definitely help me speed up when I'm writing, and it can help me be to the point, coherent and logical. So you see, I think about my topic, then I have my first reason, then I think about the result, then I give an example, and then another result. And for the second body paragraph, I do the same. I say it's negative for society. I mention my first idea, the result of my first idea. I mention the second idea, and then the example. So when I think about the process of my writing, and I clearly know what I'm supposed to do, it can help me give a very coherent and logical writing. And I do suggest this type of planning to everyone. So let me say that I've learned this type of planning from Simon.
Right.
Okay.
And the thing is that, when I look at it, it's it might be everybody else's question as well. How can you come up with examples in the first body and the second body paragraph? Like, do you write the specific example beforehand, or you think about it as you write?
First of all, I try to just start from the general to the specific. As I said, I know I want to completely be negative. Then I try to organize my ideas, think about some central idea for the paragraphs, come up with the main ideas, and then for the main ideas, I think about some specific and precise examples. So my approach is to come from the general to the detailed.
Right. Wonderful. So let's begin.
Okay.
Please read.
Okay, so first let's have a look at my introduction. I'm just going to highlight it. Rural depopulation has been occurring in many countries due to people's migration to cities. In my view, it can adversely affect not only the rural residents, but also the society as a whole.
Beautiful. The first thing that comes to mind is the rural depopulation. Brilliant paraphrase. Depopulation. It's a beautiful word. And then you said has been occurring. It's present, perfect, continuous tense. Has been occurring. And something, again, I need to highlight is the verb occur, happen, take place. It's intransitive. And, that's the good thing here.
Not has been occurred.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very good and tricky. It's like pitfalls, if you're not experienced, you fall into that. People's migration to cities, the word migration again, for moving, and then it can adversely affect another great collocation used not only in but also, and rural residents, instead of like people who live in rural areas. Wonderful. Like extremely concise yet effective introduction.
Thank you very much. Great to hear that. So let's move on to my first body paragraph, and you will see that I will follow my planning step by step. Okay, so let me highlight it. Okay, on the one hand, there might be some negative consequences for rural people. Areas with smaller proportions often receive lower governmental budgets and limited facilities. Population decline in rural areas might discourage the governments from allocating sufficient money to improving these areas, as not so many people will benefit from the improvements. Instead, more money will be spent on developing cities with more inhabitants, and people outside urban areas can be left unsupported. This decreasing support may lead to poor schooling, a limited number of medical clinics, and fewer public transport facilities. Therefore, those living in these areas might suffer from deteriorating standards of living.
Excellent, excellent. So I think you can, when we talk about vocabulary and collocation, it's absolutely brilliant as always. Like negative consequences from the start, the use of on the one hand, because we know that we have on the other hand in another paragraph. On the one hand is good. It's a good way to start. And again, for depopulation, you said with a smaller population, that's a good one. Again, do you remember you said that you don't have to use necessarily elaborate vocabulary? That's a good example, right? For depopulation, it's a smaller population. Receive lower governmental budgets. And I think 2 lines below, you said allocating sufficient money. So that money is a paraphrase of budget. These are the things that, if you have a keen eye, sharp eye, you can just spot that. Right on. Really good. Discourage somebody from doing something. That's a beautiful collocation, again. In benefits from the improvement. And then, again, you said instead, this one still moves forward. And you elaborate more. And also the next sentence, you said this decreasing support. So that one, again, hooks to the previous sentence, increases coherence and cohesion. Wonderful job. And finally, you ended with therefore also. The word therefore nicely puts everything together. And of course, examples of medical clinics and fewer public support. That's the example. You didn't have like a specific example for a specific country, but that was nevertheless the example. If you have anything else to add to that, I'd be
no, nothing. As I said, so these sentences come from my planning, and I knew what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so let's move on to the second body paragraph. Let me highlight it. Society in general can also face some detrimental effects. Dwindling population of rural areas means more job vacancies in these places. This can lead to a shortage of workforce in some important sectors such as agriculture and animal husbandry. This can jeopardize the food production of the country and force it to import crops and livestock products from other countries, which can cost more. Besides, the relocation of many people to cities can also cause some problems in urban areas. Overpopulation of cities usually results in more traffic congestion, fewer occupational opportunities, and insufficient accommodation, and can make life more difficult for city dwellers.
Wonderful, wonderful job. Again, you talked about society. The first thing that comes to mind in the first sentence is the word also. Can you say what is the function of that word?
Instead of saying on the other hand, instead of saying furthermore, moreover, that's fine, but we want to just present advanced cohesion. So these linkages
such a subtle way of saying that. Another one is dwindling population. You use already depopulation or migration or small population. Here's another way.
And it shows
Dwindling
flexibility. It shows
Yeah.
a range of lexical resources.
And you talked about new concept, which is job vacancies. In here, that's a new one. And then and I always say you shouldn't just put something there and leave it like that. You have to elaborate. And you did this brilliantly by the word "this can lead to something." It means you get the line of thought and you proceed. Okay, that's the good thing. What happens? Like the students can ask themselves, now what happens if this happens? What next? And then for the answer to that question, they can just follow it like that.
Yeah.
Shortage of workforce, important sectors. And you talked about agriculture, animal husbandry, and again, paraphrase that to import crops and livestock products. You see that? That's also great. Like in just 2 lines, you paraphrase 2 things. Really, really good. The word besides is kind of interesting because if you type it in the dictionary, it says spoken and informal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I've seen people using it.
Exactly.
Beside.
I've seen
if you
it
type
from
beside,
examiners.
It says informal and spoken.
Yeah.
But again, I saw people, even Simon, I think, uses besides.
Simon, Rachel, that's why I've used it. Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
But, I've seen it in many places, yes.
Absolutely. So that is not a mistake. Absolutely not. Relocation, many people see relocation, again, a paraphrase for migration. It's a good one. Collocation, causing a problem in urban areas. And now this time you shift your vantage point to cities. What happens to cities? And you elaborated that area sufficiently. You just mentioned all the problems like traffic congestion, fewer occupational opportunities, insufficient accommodation. You just mentioned them. And it's fine because I think like if you are going to develop that any further, that would cause 2 problems. One, the balance between your body 1 and body 2 will be lost. And another problem is that it's impossible to do it in 10 minutes. You don't have that much time. So that's a time constraint. Because I think you did it in time, right?
Yeah. I think so. I'm not exactly sure, but I think so. And so we might give some main ideas which cannot be justified. So when you can't justify a main point, don't write it. So that's my suggestion. And finally, in my conclusion, I say in the final analysis, relocating from rural to urban areas seems to bring about more damaging consequences for both people and their country and cannot be seen as a positive development.
Wonderful, clear positioning at the end. And another one is the verb, the phrasal verb bring about. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's some kind of misinformation about using phrasal verb. It's true that they're mostly used in the speaking, but we can use them, some of them in our writing, like bring about, account for, even look for, something like that. So that's fine. Bring about means cause.
Like ask for it. I got 2 books. I don't know if you like this one.
Yeah.
And of course this one. It's English phrasal verb in use, if you can. Yeah. English phrasal verb in use intermediate and English phrasal verb in use. What do you say about these 2 books?
So these are great. These are published by Cambridge and completely reliable. As I said, phrasal verbs are mostly used in the speaking, but we can use some of them in the writing.
And the good point about those books is that it is mentioned like which phrasal verbs are suitable, are appropriate to be used in writing. So yeah, wonderful job, my friend. Like it's definitely 8+. I don't know if it's 8.5 or 9. It's at the mercy of the examiner. Do you have any final words for your essay?
Nothing. And as always, I'll share our writings in the caption, and people can read them, and they can write their comments in the comment section.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we can move on to your writing. So let me change the color. And all right, so we can start with your introduction.
Right. As usual, I just paraphrased the topic and then I expressed my viewpoint. I said I started with a cleft structure, like with what. What can be witnessed in many countries all around the globe these days is the massive influx of people living in the countryside into metropolitan cities, causing a decline in the population of village dwellers. It seems to me that the demerits of this phenomenon far outweigh its merits, as shown here in this essay.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, some people told me not to highlight the sentences while you're reading, as it can be distracting. So sorry about that, guys. But from now on, I prefer to let you read and then highlight it. Okay, yeah. Perfect. A massive influx of people living in the countryside. Great. Paraphrase. Decline in the population. Precise. Village dweller again. And in the last sentence, we see a very clear position.
And the other thing is metropolitan cities. Mm-hmm. Everything I mentioned here, I just double checked it with Cambridge later. Like massive influx, village dwellers and metropolitan cities are exactly how they are used. So one thing that the students need to, or everyone else need to keep in mind is that when you're done, when you're practicing, have the dictionary of Langman Dictionary of Contemporary English right there. You type it, and then there's a box. You check the collocation. I think it's really useful.
Definitely. When
you're not sure, it can help. All right. So let's continue. As you can see, the first and the second body paragraph is kind of much more than yours. This one is 169, body 2 is 171. In the first one, I talked about possible positive features that can happen. And I used, everyone else will see that, I used kind of a weaker language to express that because it is not my position, but I don't talk about it directly. Mass migration of people living in rural areas to cities might have a number of advantages. As villages become gradually devoid of population, relatively small pieces of lands can be joined together to form a huge farm controlled by local governments or cooperatives. This leads to superior efficiency and much better yield in every step of agriculture, from planting seeds to applying fertilizers and pesticides and eventually harvesting the produce. Those still living there can be employed on farmlands with a decent wage, and seasonal workers can join them from other areas of the country or even overseas if needed. Another positive point might be the possibility of creating tourist spots, accommodations, and recreational facilities in empty villages. With rural population leaving for cities, the unspoiled nature of the area can be exploited to construct luxurious resorts and villas with all kinds of amenities. Should there be an aggressive advertising campaign, domestic and international tourists will pour in, providing the government with a steady and sustainable source of income.
Thank you very much. So let's talk about the language you've used to show some weaker positions. For example, you've said might, or you said can be, okay? So you said, I'm not 100% sure about that. Can be, okay,
this one,
might be, yes.
See that? Might be the possibility of, it's another one.
So yeah, it's a kind of hedging. You put some distance between your position and what you're saying. Great. So we see a well-developed paragraph. You present your ideas and you develop them. I don't see any kind of overgeneralizing. All the ideas are to the point. Let's talk about some useful collocations. Gradually devoid of population. topic related collocation. Relatively small pieces of land, again, relatively small pieces of land. You show your awareness of style and collocation. Superior efficiency, again, I like that.
And that's interesting. Cooperative in Farsi, if those of you who speak Farsi, call it ta'awuni. Cooperative, that's exactly that word. It might be interesting.
Okay, great. And some specific examples. And I always like your examples. Planting seeds to applying fertilizers and pesticides and harvesting the products. Seasonal works. I just randomly highlight some of them. So this essay is full of
and that's what is harvesting produce, because I use produce as a noun here, as agricultural product. It's not a product. It's produce as a noun. It's not a verb like this one. Harvesting the produce is one of the meanings of produce in a noun form. Is that, like, I see it in the dictionary, I'm looking at it right now. It says food or other things that have been grown or produced on a farm to be sold. So that's, for example, fresh local produce. That might be interesting. Anything else comes to mind?
Yeah, so this is a complex structure. I'm just going to highlight it. With rural people leaving for cities, the unspoiled nature of the area can be exploited. Construct luxurious resorts and villas, great. And again, a very good use of inversion.
Again, it might be interesting to mention that don't overuse it.
Yeah.
Just like a pinch of salt, a pinch of complex, don't overuse it.
Don't prioritize grammar over task response. Many people do that, okay? And again, as I said, this paragraph is full of grammatical structures and vocabulary. I've just highlighted some of them, okay?
And the last one is another phrasal verb, pour in. Look at the last sentence. I'm going to do it myself. What do you think about this, the use of phrasal verb pour in? It means coming in large numbers. Tourists will pour in.
It fits with what you've said, and yeah, perfect.
Thank you. So moving on to my position, as you mentioned correctly earlier in previous episodes of podcasts, my position has to be, or preferably it's better to be more than the first one. So I kept that in mind. Thank you for the input. I'm going to read it quickly. On the other hand, a change in demographics of rural areas has a number of serious drawbacks. Culturally speaking, villages have their own unique traditions, rituals, and customs dating back thousands of years. With everyone moving out of rural areas, all this rich culture and heritage, which is an inseparable part of people's identity, will be lost in the mists of time. This trend can even adversely affect national security in countries like Iran, which borders many hostile neighbors. Border villages are considered the first line of defense in case of land invasions, and with no one living there, they are quite vulnerable in case of imminent wars. Cities also do not possess the necessary infrastructure to host so many people coming in from villages. Since newcomers do not have the possibility to purchase a decent home, they start living in slums outside cities, resulting in a spike in all kinds of gang and drug-related crimes, as can now be seen in cities such as Rio de Janeiro and Mumbai.
Okay, so first of all, I think it's a good idea to look at the coherence of your paragraph. So let's have a look at the linkers. On the other hand, culturally speaking, it can be considered as a kind of cohesive device. Again, this trend, I like the advanced cohesion you use. And you use some lexical chains. For example, you use border, and again, you use it in another sentence, border villages. Well done. You link your ideas well. And again, also So we call it a kind of coherence that does not draw attention. And the use of since. Okay. And again, I like the specific examples you use. I'm just going to highlight them in purple. You give us the exact and tangible examples of different countries. That's great. And again, some useful collocations. I'm highlighting them in blue. Again, even unique traditions, like always, we don't encourage you to use Shakespeare words. Just use some relevant vocabulary and you will get high scores. Again, date back, as you said, date back is another phrasal verb, but it's used.
And something really, really subtle is with everyone moving out of rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I think it's another paraphrase of depopulation, right? It can be simple, but that one works.
Rich culture and heritage, another collocation. Or again, adversely affect.
And another one is if you type the word mist, the collocation lost in the mists of time means if something such as a fact or secret is lost in the mists of time, no one remembers it because it happened so long ago. So it is this one is exactly taken from the dictionary. Let me just highlight it myself.
Please highlight it. I lost it.
Have you seen this before? Yeah, don't worry about it. I just highlighted with red. My favorite color. So you see that? That one is just like exactly from. Have you seen this before, or it's new?
I don't think so, but it was crystal clear in your writing. The meaning, I mean, was crystal clear. Yeah, and in case of imminent wars, and as I said, the complete ideas in our essays shows that we do not share our ideas, we do not talk about it before writing, and that's something interesting.
But look at the overlap, like the last idea about cities and crimes, that's completely overlap. Of course, you looked at it from jobs and traffic, but I looked at it from another thing when it comes to the last one, the cities. And about the last one, I want to talk about this. Some people say, I can highlight this word with red. They say, teacher, crime is uncountable and you can never use it with S. I heard it all the time. I hear it all the time, but it's not like that. Crime can be used as a countable noun when referring to different crimes.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, great. As always, well developed. A wide range of lexical resources and complex structures. We see the coherence and the link between your sentences. Well done.
Thank you so much. And just let's end it with, in short, it seems that there are more downsides in people leaving rural areas for cities, such as a collapse in city infrastructure, a higher risk in national security, and a sharp rise in all kinds of crimes.
Okay, again, you've restated your position. It's not repetitive, it's not unclear, and you're giving us your exact positions in the body paragraphs.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
That's about it. Thank you very much, my dear friend Mehdi and everybody. So as always, we encourage you to share your ideas in the comment section below. And I hope to see you soon in the next episode.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.